You're not looked at. Cause
oh, sorry. I have a cramp. Whew. And, so, the kids and I were in the cabin. The doors open, the windows open, no TV or anything going. For the most part, the cabin itself was pretty empty. I had a bed in there, fish tank, that type of thing, you know. But it was actually a pretty good feeling day, so air conditioning wasn't on, anything like that. Felt pretty nice. And at the time, it hadn't been, and it still wasn't last I knew, just a few days ago, insulated or drywall up or anything. So, you could basically, you know, and it was a different angle than the house, so sounds were a little different to it than, say, the house was. And it was a little closer to Candace's than the house. So, I'm at the head of the bed, safe like you were up towards your headboard, and in the middle, I was kind of in that area of the bed. My oldest was to my left, but around where, like, if you were sitting Indian style at your headboard, he was kind of to my left and down a little past where knees Indian style would be. And my daughter was towards my feet and to the left and closest to the cabin doors, which were just 2-3 feet maybe, most, from her. And, we were laughing, cutting up, sharing jokes. At that point, it wasn't even at JD's expense or anything. It was just usual us having a good time together, especially while Voldemort was not present. We're pretty loud when together. We're talkers. It's just, they're mine. So we were kind of like, pretty happy. Always kind of worried when left to our own little devices. Just chatting like we normally do, joking, goofing off, having a great time together. And I remember there being jokes, laughter, definitely talking over one another, right? And the kids were being pretty loud. That day there hadn't been a lot of noise other than the woodcutters, with the 2 crews and such. They cut out, a little while before, the next things happened. There were several points in the day where, I heard noises outside, in the roadway below us, other places up and down, even with the woodcutters, and it had brought me out of the cabin, to check the banks and to look down and make sure the roadway was clear and no cars were parked there and JD wasn't back, doing anything crazy. And then at one point, as we get closer to the minutes that I never really saw anything that day. No cars really sitting, not much of anything every time I was brought out of the cabin, and my oldest would have to help me because, the stress from JD being there had hit pretty hard, and like I said, my body was kind of in, it was difficult then, as you can imagine. I know looking and seeing me talk, it looks like I'm all Whew, that is not really how it is, and even then it was really hard, and it's been months since that, and I'm still not on thyroid meds again, and it's really difficult just to move. I'm sure you're noticing my speech is getting worse as this is, and my mouth looks different and heavier, and as it's getting later and stress is catching up from yesterday, the droop's there. You'll see this. It's the pucker muscles they had to cut through, so it'll look heavier and like my face is dragging. Anyway, so the point is, I felt pretty bad after the stress of JD and that whole drama. And my muscles and things were already cramped without my thyroid med stuff at that point. Because it had been, I was expecting radiation, and that was the first time. So at least the 6 or 8 weeks I'd been off, I think, at that point. Anyway, and I have other health conditions. Right now, from the last radiation, it's pericarditis and heart problems and things. So, a little difficult. So, my oldest had helped me out of the cabin a few times that day to look and see with my PTSD hypervigilant state what was happening, and made sure nothing happened to me while I was being nosy. So, there wasn't anything really abnormal that I saw or heard until there was a point in there during the day, and it was after the tree cutters had stopped sawing, the clearers, whatever you want to call them. So somewhere around 3, they cut out, and at some point after that, I heard a car door slam. It sounded like a road that kind of faces the right of way that also cuts through this property too. That splits this one in parts and goes back. There's another road that faces it that's named Simpson. Not to be confused with another one across the main road. So I hear what I feel like is a car door coming from there. Now, that hit me as odd. And I think we go out at that point and look around, didn't see anything. And, we ended up going back in. But somewhere in that point, and I had asked for help at one point, making sure I was right on this, without being led or anything, but, we heard a car door, just one. Never heard an engine or a car leave, even though it was quiet. We walked the bank for quite a few minutes, and it looked like one of the survey lines was down to me. So I asked him to see if somebody cut it, to see what was going on. It looked like the tires down in the parking space I referred to earlier had been moved to me at the angle I was at. And my oldest was nice enough to walk that survey line. There was a branch on it, and he removed it, and the survey line come back up, and then he went a little further down and was to the right, and looked, and the tires hadn't been moved. And while he was doing that, while we were on the bank, there was a car that went up Candace's driveway. Now, the angle I was at and where he was at, I still don't know why I asked. I know that something was wrong with it, is the reason I asked him. Because had there not been, I wouldn't have asked at all. It was something about the color, the rotation of, and the way it hit the driveway, because I know the sounds and stuff of Candace's cars as they go in and out, and Donnie's, and who y'all call Granny's. I know the sounds of their vehicles and the way the tires spin, and I can tell you without looking which one it is, going up or down, even when I'm inside the house or the cabin. The new Subaru, anyway, but for some reason in my head, there was a flash of red going up the driveway that was wrong. It wasn't shiny, it didn't have the gloss, it wasn't right. And the way the traction switched over for the Subaru was entirely different than whatever this was that day. The Subaru does, like, at that point, like a 2.5 thing before it transfers over to whatever it picks up and then finally goes up. This didn't do that, and it also never completed the loop for their driveway, like to pull in at the top, like towards where Grandis' camper was. And it was almost like it had stopped at the basement door, which is also not where most of you all keep marking. It is not where half of, or 75% of the internet seems to think it is. So anyway, it is facing this property, and it is not very far up from the roadway. And I can tell you that the full-size Dodge truck that Baltimore had, that's four-wheel drive, that you can pull up in front of the basement and they can't hear you inside the house. There's just something about the way the basement and the hill's shaped and the way it curves. Most of the time they can't even hear you if you're outside there. And the way the sounds on these properties work, they're all different and they all pick up different things. Hold on. So, something about the sound and the flash of red were wrong to me. The flash, as I recall in my head, wasn't glossy like that Subaru should have been. It wasn't new, it didn't have the clear coat. Something was wrong. And it's the reason I asked my oldest, who was that? And I think just, and his statement not long ago, and I may let them speak for themselves if they want, maybe, but not visually. Not sure about that yet. We'll discuss it as a family unit before that happens, if it happens. But they did consent not long ago to other PIs and things, interviewed them on tape and things to be used if, and they've all, obviously, we've all been interviewed a bazillion times since day one, minute one, so either way, by every agency you could ever name on earth, trust me. Now, and I believe what my oldest, had told, was that, he just seen red and assumed, so he went with, it's the neighbors. And I took that, well, okay, but I didn't think much about it, right, Anyway, there was, we go back inside at some point, and one of the points from looking at and being outside, for all these different moments. And, the reason I know the time is because I was messaging back and forth with Voldemort, and around around 4:52, I believe. I have to look back at the messages, and lately I've not looked at those messages just because of other things going on with, like I said, our situation, and it's just... But I believe the time Voldemort had messaged to ask what I was doing or something, and it was at like 4:52. So somewhere around 4:42, I think, has been my estimation since the get. And it could have been as early as 4:30, but it was somewhere in between 4:30 and 4:42 for sure, because I know we were out on the bank for a little bit trying to figure out what this was. So somewhere between 4:30 and 4:42, the children and I were sitting there being pretty loud, laughing, carrying on. I mean, and when I say loud, we're pretty loud. However, the cabin was quiet, TV running, no air, no fans, and this scream happens. This noise I originally tried to dismiss as, but it was so different and so wrong that it immediately hits me in the gut as not right. And it shuts all three of us down cold mid-sentence. It was that strange. And I mean, as someone who's grown up in the woods and with critters of all kinds, like, if you want to meet an Ellie Mae, I'm it. This wasn't, but I tried. It was so strange that I immediately tried to dismiss it as something else, including a dog, even though I knew better, because, and what I thought was, okay, well, we heard the truck, or a car door, right, the one, and even though by this point, the woodcutters have been gone for hours, should not have been there, in my head, trying to dismiss this, I was like, okay, so one of Candace's dogs has gotten too close to where a woodcutter was, and they've kicked it. But I knew the sound was wrong for a dog. And I knew it didn't make sense because there'd be no reason there'd be a straggler in there that long. For the wood cutters, right? Whatever you want to call them. But I was like, well, you know, and my kids are immediately like, well, that's the kids. And I'm like, it's not the kids, because first thing in my mind when kids is mentioned in that context is the boys, right? Candace's. Now, I know all of their sounds, trust me. Oh boy, do I. And I'll not use their names because, you know, but, you know, I've known them since they were littles, and I've heard every noise you can imagine out of those three. I hear them play every day. Oh, and I'm like, Candace, I'm sorry, but they kind of, their radiation when I was barking, they drove me a little crazy. That's all I'm saying. No, but anyway, they I've heard every noise you can imagine out of those three. And they go down further than Summer, and they do ride their dirt bikes back and forth and things like that. And they go in places that Summer really doesn't. But this wasn't their noises. But that's what hit me, right? Was, that's not the boys, and that's what I said. And it never really occurred to me, Summer. And the reason is because Summer doesn't play down far enough to really hear her. Sometimes when she's high on the bank, or, you know, one of the boys are picking, or she's picking, or she's, you know, but not a whole lot do you hear Summer. Not like the boys. Oh dear. I mean, you'll hear her faintly, you'll hear whatever, but she stays a little closer to the house and things. And contrary to popular belief, I've never once seen Summer in the road. Those kids, like, no. She's also not the type to just, it's not, even when people, like, look, no. So, anyway, but my daughter jumps up and goes to the door of the cabin because she's closest. And what she hears, sorry, I'm making sure her headphones are on, like I said. I'm going through enough as is. And this has been, so, anyway, not, you know. Anyway. Whew. So, she gets to the cabin door first. And this was a pretty quick series of events. It was what is that? That's the kids. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. And she gets to the door first, and she goes, I can still hear it. It's one of the kids. And she was like, it's going, it's muffled. Those were her exact words. That day, she was like, I can still hear it. I couldn't hear it at that point any longer. But like I said, she was the first one to the door, had her head out. And she says that she can hear it. It's still muffled. Was leaving the road, kind of. But that she could still hear it. So, for a little while, it's just so weird, right? So, and I believe she also said she could hear a car too. I could not, but I was further back. Like I said, she was first door, he was second. But then, we go out, onto the banks again, and we're listening, we're looking. We don't hear or see anything, really. We eventually go back in. Then, I get ready. I start getting ready not too long after that, because normal time for Voldemort to get off of work. But then Voldemort texts and says he's going to be running behind, that he's working over, and so somewhere, and I believe around 6, but usually gets out, either way. He was running quite a bit behind, but at one point near 6, and I believe on the phone at 6:09, I'm going around the top curve of our doorway to start the descent down. By this point, I'm hearing, hold on. So, like I was saying, I'd gotten down, looked into the tile, didn't see Summer. But I went across back over to the left, which is Candace's property, where the other side of the tile is, and that's if you're going out the road, not in. So, cross over, and I started into a spot that's kind of clear, and head towards the creek, because I think, well, maybe brothers have left her behind, or she's fallen off the top of the hill, she's gotten hurt, or, the usual things, right? And we need to find her, if that's the case, because in my head, I'm like, it's been a while since I've heard this scream this noise if she's hurt. She's been here a while. So, I'm wearing sandals, and I know the best thing I can do is get into the water. So I step into the creek. Because from there I can keep tracks down. Because when you live in areas like ours, you know worst case scenario. You also know what happens if somebody can't be found. And you know that staying in the water keeps scent down for dogs, if they have to be brought in. So, also it's a good way to check, even though, but with your feet on what's in the bottom and deepest spots. So, and at the same time I keep an eye on the bank going around Candace's, and to the top of the hill. Before I had stepped into the creek, I could hear the boys go down the left side of their property towards the creek on that side that I had looked down towards earlier. And there was a point there when, I could tell that Candace and the boys had met up when they were hollering for summer and circling the hill at the top. And Candace was like, to the oldest, was like, what did you do? What did you do? And not like an accused her. It was more of, and at the same time I keep an eye on the bank going around Candace's, and to the top of the hill. Before I had stepped into the creek, I could hear the boys go down the left side of their property towards the creek on that side that I had looked down towards earlier. And there was a point there when, I could tell that Candace and the boys had met up when they were hollering for summer and circling the hill at the top. And Candace was like, to the oldest, was like, what did you do? What did you do? And not like an accused her. It was more of a, like, did you not have eyes on your sister? Did you leave her behind? So, literally, at this point, I thought, okay, then I was, like, it is that the boys were supposed to have an eye on her and didn't or something. And, so anyway, I'm stepping into the creek. I was, not too far in. Sorry, this one's trying to snatch the phone cord. And, why are there 6 in the house? They're always trying to snatch the phone cord. Hold on. I had to remind him that there's 6 others in here. So anyway, Lord, like I said, herd of elephants. So anyway, as I was looking, went a few feet, in to the water, but, 20 feet maybe from the road, I don't know, maybe less than that, I don't know. Wasn't too far in when I hear a car coming down Candace's driveway. And her talking to somebody, which I assume was somebody in the car with her. But as I hear her getting closer, I come back out of the creek and jump up. out of, and then into the roadway, and she's in Grandis's vehicle, and which, kind of confused me at first, because I was like, well, it flashed red earlier, and I thought, well, that wouldn't have been the first vehicle in line. Grandis's was ahead of it, so that's why she's in Grandis's. And so, anyway, when she pulls up, she's on the phone with Donnie. But the first thing I said, guys, I wish I could explain to you. I wish there had been some way for me to take a picture or video that day. Donnie's on the phone with her, and I didn't even realize the time. It just didn't hit me. But the first thing I said to Candace is, I heard her scream, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And then I realized Donnie's on the phone. And Donnie says something like, so you're telling me somebody's taking my baby girl or something? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I didn't put it together, enough time, right? I was like, because the first thing she says to me is, we're talking together, basically, which is, I'm saying I'm sorry, and she's like, Summer's missing. And I'm like, where's the last place you've seen her, and I heard the scream, all this is happening, it's just a jumble, right? And her face, so, the tears that, y'all, as a mother, any mother, if you had seen her face, she was sincere. Now, Candace and I and Donnie, it wasn't like we were all, like, besties or anything like that. I just want to clarify that so nobody's like, we were neighbors. And in the area we live in, you kind of deal with your direct neighbor, right? You don't deal with all of them, you deal with your directs. And so, there would be conversations here and there. Candace and I kind of had similar issues throughout the years, because it took, I don't know, good 3 or 4 years or so of us being trapped where we were before we even really met them. We knew they were over there and lived there, but that's how kind of little contact everybody wants with one another where we live. Unless it's an emergency, a murder, or something like don't come on the hill type of situation, right? And, anyway, so, weren't besties or anything like that. Like, cup of sugar, just when the kids need something. Hey, I forgot toilet paper today. Will you watch the kids for this? Or whatever that. Throughout the years, I watched them a few times, even our kids, we really didn't play together or anything through the years, but, we knew each other's kids. The boys went back and forth, the girls did not. If we had messages to send, or internet wasn't working, or power was out, it's the boys that would come back and forth. Hate to be double standard like that, but, up until right before all of this, my preteen hadn't even been allowed to walk to the mailbox because it's that far away from the house, we just, yeah. It's like the mailbox is the only point of vulnerability, really. And I just wasn't willing to do that. But it was mostly because of cars, not because I ever thought kidnapper or whatever. And, there are bears and this and the other, but my kids kind of know how to act, and, our feet from them most days. And so, it's not really a big deal for us. Wildlife's a thing. They know how to, traverse that world. Because, like I said, Ellie Mae, right? So they've been taught. It's never really been animals for me that I've worried about with them. Or even people. It's been that somebody coming around the curve because of the way the road's shaped right there, and then the way it tops right at our old mailbox. It's super dangerous. So, anyway, but Candace and I had similar issues throughout the years and helped each other through. So microscopic. I mean, we talk at mailboxes. Voldemort would go and chit chat, do whatever. I mean, he was up there far more than I was. I'm, mostly trapped in the box on my side there. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there that it wasn't like we're besties or hang out or, like, that way people understood the relationship here. But as a community, neighbors, mothers, I know her well enough to know that her face was genuine that day, and I know with what was already going on in our lives that her calling the police that day was a big step and not something she would have done lightly. And for her to have done so immediately told me that it was serious and sort of that she was, like, I still firmly believe she had nothing to do with any of this. And I mean, I've had people almost make me that, like, but I know in my gut, in my heart, that she didn't. If you all could have seen her face and heard her voice, and I understand, I see what the rest of the public does. The same information's out here for me to read and see too. I know certain behaviors make it look really weird and really whatever, and I understand, I get it. I do, and I understand where some people are coming from, and, eating alive for some of it, I get it. And I get the past stuff, and I get whatever. But in my gut, and in my heart, I know she didn't. And I just, either way. So, I tell her I'm looking, and I jump back in to the woods and then back into the creek, and then our other neighbor, who I'm not going to name, had either heard the commotion and was already out, but I heard him and her talking. I don't know if she got him or if he was already out, and a lot of times he is already around that time. So, I don't know how it happened. I was looking on my own, so I was focused. But I did pick up enough to know that he had joined by this point. And then I looked back at one point, and he's pretty close to me. He's still on the roadway, and he was like, "You on the creek?" And I was like, "Well, you got boots on. I've got sandals. That makes more sense." So he took the bank beside of me so he could walk it and look for tracks. I could stay in the water, and I could look. And that way it kept out on tracks, but covered everything. And so we both walked through, and like I said, the point in the foliage was a little different than even just a couple days after. I mean, it was quick how fast it popped up. And right where this is at, coincidentally, is where the clear cutting started. And it was down to mud and dirt like I've never seen before. Even the creek was dammed up in spots. I mean, it was crazy. So, I follow the creek, he follows the bank, and with the bottom of Candace's hill is it the main piece there. We keep in contact when we can't see one another. We're like, "Do you see any track? Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" I'm dragging the bottom of my feet. I'm looking at the mud, see tracks, anything. there's nothing. And he's getting nothing. And we should have had something been through there just because of how devastated it was and sort of how muddy it had been made by the clear cutting. It was very thick, mushy. It wasn't normal like it would have been had they not clear cut. But tracks would have been there and even more pronounced because of, but it was still so messed up that I don't know. Either way, at the creek area though, it wasn't as, Anyway, I get to points to where you can tell that obviously the creek's not been touched. It's stagnant for a pretty lengthy period, even though there had been a rain just a night or two before. And so I could tell nothing had been there in those spots. But I went through them anyway. Felt with my feet at the bottom, looked for cracks on the banks, and then I would hop out in places I couldn't get through because they've been messed up so bad by the clear cutting and stuff, and I would hop right in on the other side of whatever was, and rinse, repeat, right, all the way down through. And the entire time the other neighbor is still with me, and we're following, and calling back and forth, make sure that we've not found her, that we've not seen anything with each other. I get to the part where they literally have clear cut it in almost a path straight. It's clear cut all the way to the main road. You can't, it was wild. But there's a part that comes down almost like a roadway into Candace's property from the main road that they had clear cut everything out of. And it had entirely dammed up a piece. It's near a guardrail. And the field opens up at that point. And I see the boys way off to what is now my left but back shoulder. And at this point, I hear the cops coming. Because down there, you can tell the cops are coming 30 minutes before they're even in there because of the way dogs howl. So you've got quite a bit of warning, but also, I just hear them, and you hear the engines pick up. There's two, they come by. And then it wasn't long after that Voldemort comes in, and then Donnie along behind him. During all this, also see and hear Candace going in and out, of Ben Hill onto the main road, for things, but not in long spurts, So then, I keep walking my piece, and as much as I can at this point, because they had literally taken out the creek. It's one of the wildest things I'd ever seen. So Voldemort stops back behind. I was like, Summer's missing. He's like, I know, I'm looking. So he's driving him down the main road. I'm like, I've got this. I see the boys back there. They're kind of squatted down. They're children. And I know instinctively what they're doing. They're kind of playing. And I'm just like, okay, kids will be kids. Either way, I finally make my way to them. I'm almost to them before they realize I'm there. They've been caught. And they stand up, and the oldest, I was like, look, when's the last time you seen your sister? Where did you see her last? And he, and I'm not going to say what he told me. But then he tells me it's been like, a few minutes. And I'm not going to give the exact time period either. And he tells me that, and he's pretty speaking for the group, and they're a little off, but I figure as well they just got caught playing, looking for sister, and they're afraid I won't tell mama. So anyway, they start trudging back through the middle of me and another neighbor through the field to go back home. By this point, I can see a cop in the back. I've reached as far as I can get without crossing the other fence, and then right back to where I know has already been searched and is being searched by others at the time. And so I head back out towards the middle, almost the same way the boys do. That way I could look for tracks in the middle in case. And I know the other neighbor hadn't been able to get that because they were still busy on the bank. I hollered back and forth to them, asked if they found anything. They have not. Obviously, none of us had. We all kind of knew at that point she was not in there. There was also, I think we would have spotted any signs of animal things. I think there was like one bird track maybe, but it was older. Wasn't fresh. And I mean like one paw, and not fresh. So, but not, anyway, it had been there before the rain, so it wasn't. Anyway, I made my way back to the start of Ben Hill. By this point, other neighbors are starting to flood in. Sorry. I had to take a small break. Anyway, the glare is real. So, like I said, I know, that, I'm thought of and missed and cared for. And I know the community wants her home. Candace definitely does, And I don't think Candace had anything to do with this. I don't think the boys had anything to do with this.